Hello and welcome to Governmental Accounting and Auditing. My name is Dean Mead and I will be the professor for this course. I have been a professor at Rutgers Business School since the fall of 2008, predominantly teaching this course, but also teaching two advanced courses, one advanced topics in governmental accounting and the other topics in governmental financial analysis. By day, I am the research manager at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, where I have been since June of 1998. My background is not as an accountant. I am not a CPA, but I have been obviously involved in governmental accounting for quite some time and are, in my humble opinion, quite knowledgeable about governmental accounting. My career prior to going to the GASB was as a user of governmental financial statements, working for an organization in New York City known as the Citizens Budget Commission, analyzing the finances primarily of New York City and New York State and of their service provision and management and policy issues, but also looking at the financial statements of governments around the country in order to have a point of comparison for New York City and New York State and to understand where they stand relative to their peers. Although I will work with you to give you the technical aspects of the accounting, to go through all the debits and credits, I hope to broaden your horizon a little bit and give you a sense of why these accounting standards are the way they are and what they're intended to achieve, because the whole idea behind them is so that governments can report on their finances to people who need that information to make decisions and to hold governments accountable. The course is divided into 12 units plus a week for the midterm and a week for the final exam, so it's 14 weeks altogether. Each of the units, except the very last one, has all 7 of these items. It begins with a statement of the objectives for that unit, an introduction to the topic covered that week. Then there is a recorded, I call it a mini lecture. It's not a full-blown lecture on that week's topics, but it is a narrated PowerPoint presentation in which I try to touch upon the key things that you need to focus on that week, key topics and issues that you need to make sure you understand coming out of that week's unit. There's a set of PowerPoint slides provided by the authors of the textbook, some key terminology that you should make sure you understand, self-study questions that are useful for preparing for the midterm and the final, that week's assignment that comes out of the problems and exercises section at the end of each chapter in the textbook, and then a threaded discussion, usually referred to as the CAFR discussion. That's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, is what CAFR stands for. I'll say more about what the CAFR discussion, the threaded discussion, is all about in a little bit. The one thing that's different in the final unit, the last unit of the semester, is that there's a threaded discussion there, but we've basically X'd it out and said, focus on getting your assignment done and preparing for the final exam. You will also find in some of the units some online resources that you might find interesting and helpful, perhaps some optional readings. You do not have to look at any of these in order to get an A in this course, but you might find them helpful in providing some additional context and maybe a little bit more of a drill down on particular issues. From the start, you should make sure you've read the syllabus through completely and understand it. You need to get the textbook as quickly as possible, but I can tell you that if it's not going to arrive by the, or hasn't arrived already at this point, now that you're watching this message, that the first couple of weeks, the chapters for the first couple of weeks from the textbook are available in PDF format in the document sharing area of the course website. you should listen to the welcome message. Boom, you can check that one off. And then you should go to the threaded discussion that says introductions and introduce yourself to me and to the rest of the class. And then go to the second discussion thread and identify which state you're going to use for the CAFR discussions, because you're expected to pick a state, you're the only one who's going to be doing that state. So you need to get in early in there and say, this is the state that I'm going to look at, so that nobody else picks it. And then each week you're going to answer the threaded discussion question by using that comprehensive annual financial report for the state that you've selected. The course, 10% of the grade is that discussion thread. 10% is the weekly assignments. The midterm exam and the final exam are each worth 40%. So that's a pretty hefty portion of the of the course grade. But that doesn't mean that you can sort of shirk the weekly assignments and the discussion threads. I can tell you, I've seen plenty of students over the years who have taken the midterm and the final exam and basically didn't do much in the way of the discussion threads and the assignments, and they do not fare well. I mean, for one thing, doing the assignments, participating in the discussion threads help you in terms of preparation for the midterm and final exam. But also, it's virtually impossible to get an A in this course if you don't do well in the discussion threads and the assignments, in addition to doing well on the midterm and final exams. The threaded discussions pose a question each week related to that week's topic. For instance, if the topic is looking at accounting and financial reporting for long-term liabilities, then there's going to be a question posed that will ask you to look at the CAFR for the state that you've chosen and relate some information about what's reported there about long-term liabilities. The important thing here is not just to answer the question. That's the first part that you need in order to get full credit for that week's discussion, but also to then interact with me and with, in particular, with your fellow classmates, to read their answers and pose questions, to respond to the questions that they pose. This is supposed to be a discussion and not just another form of homework. If you participate very well and very meaningfully, not just the number of times you post, but what you say in those posts, you have the potential to get some extra credit here. Essentially, I will close these out basically a week after the end of that unit. So each unit ends at midnight on Sunday, which means you can continue to post and get credit for it on a thread 1 week after the close of the unit. And so in any given week, what that means is, in addition to responding to that week's threaded discussion, you should also be looking back at the prior week to see if somebody has posted something that you should be responding to, or whether somebody has responded to something that you've posted. And then I will grade the each week's threaded discussion sometime after the close of the following week. These are really a great opportunity to delve deeper into these issues and to really understand what's going on, and to understand how these standards that you're studying are operationalized in an actual financial report, and to make it a little bit more real than just looking at a description of what's supposed to be reported in the textbook. Each week has an assignment. As I said, together they're worth 10% of the course grade. It's usually, every week has some multiple choice questions, maybe some matching, some short answers, some analysis of transactions, meaning, providing the debits and credits. You'll be given the basic facts about a particular transaction, and then expected to do the debits and credits, the journal entries related to that, maybe preparing a pro forma financial statement or two. They're really, I think, very straightforward, but what's very useful about them is, particularly with the multiple choice, that's exactly what you're going to see on the midterm exam and the final exam. So in each week, you're really not just fulfilling that week's assignments, but you're helping to prepare yourself for the midterm and the final. The assignments are submitted through the Dropbox feature on the course website. They're due by midnight your local time on Sunday. So if you're on the West Coast, I don't expect you to have your assignments in by 9 p.m. You can have them in by midnight your time. Don't try to pull that if I know you're on the East Coast and you try to submit it at 3 a.m. Of course, I'm not going to be a stickler and shoot your assignment back to you if you submit it at 12:01. Let's just live by the spirit of this requirement, all right? And just make sure that you have your assignments in on time so that I can grade them and return the solutions to everybody. If I haven't received all the assignments, I'm not going to want to release the solution, because once I do that, you can't get any credit for the assignment. You should submit your assignments as Word documents unless you have done the journal entries or the financial statements or other tables in Excel. Then you should submit the Excel document as well, rather than copying the table from Excel and pasting it into Word. If you do that, I can't see what underlies the table, how you put it together. I can't give partial credit, and I can't comment on it and identify errors for you. So please be sure to submit the Excel document as well. The midterm and final exam are obviously the big enchiladas as far as the grade goes. They're each worth 40%. You will have the first exam, the midterm, on Monday, July 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. That's when it will become available for you to to enter. I usually leave it open for about 3 hours or so you don't have to enter right at 7. You can enter any time between, say, 7 and 10 p.m. and begin your exam, and you will get the full amount of time for the exam, regardless of what time you start. If there is some kind of issue, some kind of conflict of significance that would prevent you from taking the exam at that time, or the final exam at its scheduled time, you need to contact me about that as soon as possible after the semester begins, so that we can make an arrangement for another time for you to take the exam. Even though this is an online exam and you don't have to be somewhere in particular in order to take the exam, I still want to be available to you during the exam should there be some kind of issue or you have a question about the exam that you need answered. So it's important for us to be able to schedule a time when I can do that, and also not have me scheduling 15 individual times, so that I can be available to each of you at a variety of times. So there really has to be a good reason why you can't take the exam at that time. You will have a week break prior to the midterm. That's the way that the summer term is set up. So we will finish the first 6 units. Then there will be a week during which you can prepare for the exam. And then the exam will be on July 6th. There is no similar week before the final exam, unfortunately. And the final exam is Thursday, August 6th, again beginning at 7 p.m. The same idea, will open at 7. Prior to taking the exam, you will need to download, if you haven't already, the program Exam Guard. It is available under the Unit 6 tab. Prior to the off week, I will post a lot more information about the midterm exam. I will do the same thing prior to the final exam, and that'll tell you a lot more about what's in the exam. It'll talk about the downloading of Exam Guard and trying that out in advance, and making sure that technically everything is working before you enter the exam. If you need to contact me, the best way to do it is email. I usually respond very quickly, usually within a day. If after conversing by email, it is apparent that the issue requires more discussion, and trying to deal with it in emails isn't working, then we can arrange a time to have a conversation on the telephone This number here, the 203 number, is my direct line at work. So obviously I'm there, Monday to Friday most of the time. However, I do split my work time at Gatsby between the offices in Connecticut and my home in West Palm Beach in Florida. So I'm not always available at that phone number. So certainly the best way to contact me is with my email address. And if we arrange a time to talk when I'm not in the office, then I will give you a phone number to reach me at that time. So with that, please, if you have any questions about the course, about the syllabus, send me an email and I'd be happy to respond to it. Otherwise, good luck this semester. It's a lot of work in a very short amount of time, but I'm here to support you and give you the feedback you need, and hopefully get you to August 6th to successfully complete your final exam and get a good grade in the course.